I've been playing Arknights for more than 2 years. I've read every story, almost all character stories, and have been incredibly invested with the plot and where it's been headed. Now what does this make me? An absolute loser. But it also makes me a fan. And I think if you are a fan of something, then you need to critique it the most for it to get better. Being a blind fanboy does not help whatever it is you're fanatical about at getting better. Instead, recognizing where it falters and talking about that can lead to the thing you love getting better. With that said, I'm gonna absolutely shit on this anime. Now, will this be my harshest review yet? God no, I reviewed Shield Hero Season 2. Will I be a ton more critical of this than anything else I've reviewed? Most definitely. But it's because I want the anime to be as good as it could possibly be. Now, going into this, my expectations were lower than Kanye's reputation. It's a gacha story adapted into an anime, and there have been many examples of anime like that being an affront to God. And the early chapters of Arknights aren't that good either. Even so, I still had 100% pure hopium about the anime. I still wanted it to be great. Yet, I was left disappointed. Let me play through my roller coaster of disappointment regarding one of the biggest flaws in the anime, the animation. The animation in episode 1 looked like it was trying to make me nauseous, but also made me feel crazy. That may seem hyperbolic, but hear me out. It's because of a couple design choices in episode 1. The way it used blurred lines felt very off to me, and at times looked like it was in 720p. Also, any colors weren't fully uniform. For example, look at this. The blue uniform isn't fully blue. It's very grainy and kinda looks like the side of a dumpster. And the entire anime does have that same grainy texture basically anywhere. And I heard nobody talking about this. So I hope after explaining this, people don't look at me like I'm the neighborhood crackhead. Please, please tell me you see this. I can't be the only one. I even pulled the anime up on a different monitor, but it still looks grainy. But the weird blurred lines and the grainy texture only look as bad as that in the first episode. After that it was fixed, and I thought that was a design choice as the doctor had just woken up. Therefore things would look like a hangover, which made me appreciate the attention to detail in the animation. The grainy film remains, but it's less noticeable after episode 1, and with that in mind I was really appreciating the animation. It was really good at setting the tone, and the characters look faithful to how they are in the game. Amiya is like 4 feet tall, Mephisto is still the most punchable punk-ass bitch, and Franka still has that hammerhead shark type beat. But with every passing episode, I came to the realization of the animation's biggest drawback, and that's the fact that these motherfuckers are barely animated, namely within the talking scenes. In animes like Kaguya-sama, talking scenes are animated like they're a fucking Maxor video. But in this, the characters are barely doing anything as they speak. In the earlier episodes, the characters are more expressive, and how they look is used to set the tone well. But later on, the expressions get less and less detailed. The later episodes have more and more scenes where characters are just standing still, with their lips flapping, with the camera barely moving. Since Arknights is a visual novel, these characters are constantly waffling on. And with that, having scenes where there isn't much happening visually, and the characters are just statically speaking, is boring to watch. And scenes like that play out way too much. Those scenes could be improved by showing certain things when the characters are referencing them, but the show is more focused on telling rather than showing. An example of a good visual novel adaptation can be found in Steins Gate. It still has all the important talking points whilst you get to see more happening on the screen as the characters are yapping. When reading a visual novel, you get as much visual stimulation as reading a car manual. And at times, this anime really doesn't top that experience by much. And another problem with how little animation there is reflected in the fight scenes. There's barely any animation to them, and I heard people defending the fight scenes, saying Arknights is a visual novel and doesn't have a lot of action. Motherfucker, do you have dementia? Let's take a little trip down memory lane, specifically looking at officially animated fight scenes. The Near Light trailer, the CG Patriot fight, the CG Frost Nova fight, Saphira Navis trailer, Zero Kusano trailer, the Solace trailer, even Holy Nightlight had better fight scenes than this anime. It's been shown time and time again that Arknights could have really well animated fights, but this anime gives us the bare minimum, and sometimes doesn't give us fight scenes. For example, we don't get to see Ace's big fight, like, at all. I wanted to see Ace clap some ass. He's an elite operator. That means he's on the same level as a Sarkaz prince and an insane cat with a chainsaw. The most we see is him choking someone out, and that definitely awoke something within me. But by God is it fucking bland for an elite operator. And many other characters feel bland in this. When we see Hoshiguma fight in episode 6, all she does is run into an enemy, shield first. Why can't we see her Beyblade that shit like how she does in the game? On one hand we got Metal Fusion, on the other she's a football player. We also don't get too many things visualized. There are some things, such as how it showed what an infection looks like, the crystals. I appreciate that as when I first played the game, I thought the animal ears were what showed someone as infected. That's an example of the anime displaying something that the visual novel didn't do too well. Another would be how it shows glimpses of the world map. This helps put in perspective how close some cities are, and is useful for people who don't know which country is where on Terra. But that's basically the end of how the anime visualizes stuff that the game didn't. I mean, we get to see a bit of Rose Island's interior, and sort of how city plates look, but nothing as in-depth as I'd like. For example, the anime shows Lungmen, and in case you don't know, Lungmen has two distinct parts in it. The main part with tall buildings and flashing lights, and the slums ruled by the Rat King. The slums look basically depressing. It's two very different areas in one city, and I expected something like a big panning shot going around most of Lungmen. It would have shown how beautiful the parts ruled by Wei are, and then panned into the slums, displaying how dirty they are, and helping the viewer really get a feel of Lungmen's dichotomy. But we don't get that. We just get one set piece of the blue area and one of the yellow and dirty area. You barely get a feel that the two are within the same city. They just feel like two unconnected set pieces. When I finished the anime, I felt as though we basically got a visual novel with voice acting and animation that doesn't feel like it's trying to wow us. It feels like it's looking for a passing grade. Now, the animation does have one really good aspect to it, and that's setting the tone. The first few episodes do a great job at displaying how helpless the situation Chernobog was, and Tallulah introduction was top-notch. An amazing scene. With how oppressive Terra is shown to be, I think the studio's ability to convey that within the tone is amazing. It does a better job than the game. When I first started playing Arknights, I thought Chernobog wasn't really all that difficult of a mission, but actually getting to see the characters hiding and how helpless they felt when the doctor said they don't remember shit made me really understand the stakes. But tone aside, there isn't much to compliment. Another thing I found lacking was the music, which was a surprise. Arknight's music puts me into withdrawals whenever we don't get a new track after a while. There's a reason most videos of mine have Arknight's music in the back. That's mainly because I'm too lazy to get new music, but also because it slaps. Although aside from the opening and ending, there aren't any interesting songs being played. I don't hate the background music in the anime, but it's nowhere near as good as the music made for the game. Honestly, I'd have preferred if they just used the music they already made as opposed to the new tracks. Imagine if we had a fight scene and something like Operation Blade was in the background. It still wouldn't make them good, but I mean shit, it'd be much needed help. Unlike the music, they thankfully decided to not replace the current voice actors. It's good to see all the original voices, and their acting is still godlike. Some characters who didn't have a voice in the game now do, and they're all really fitting. Some people are iffy on the Doctor's voice, and I think they did a good job with trying to make it gender neutral. I mean, the neutrality really only extends from female to femboy, but they did a good job. That aside, something that will be necessary for the future is more episodes. If in the second season they try to condense chapter 6 and beyond into 8 or so episodes, it will be a disaster. Even for how relatively short chapters 0 to 3 are, there's still times where it feels rushed, and scenes that just happen, like this one. Them reunion bitches just appeared like a wild Pokemon, materialized from thin air. There was one scene where Amiya asked Rose Island operators to get to a specific place, and then in the next scene, they were just there. It feels like they teleported. Given more time, some scenes could have been shown of the characters waiting for backup, but what we got is one scene the characters are moving, and in the next they're just there, with seemingly no time passing at all. However, I'm going to talk about the best thing this anime provides, and that is very simply it's much easier to watch this than read the early chapters of Arknights' story. Listen, we all know chapters 0 to 4 are fucking rough. It feels like they are actively giving you brain rot, but this anime, even with all the shit I give it, is still the best way to go through the story of the early chapters. So if someone is looking to get into Arknights, then they could view the anime and then start from chapter 4, which is considerably easier to read than the prior ones. It isn't a one-to-one adaptation, and for that I'm glad. It provides most of the useful knowledge whilst cutting out a lot of bloat in the early chapters. But that and the tone are the only big positives I could find. Which pains me to say, as I love Arknights. I literally made a 10-minute video just sucking the game off, giving it the praise it deserves, because it's an absolute masterpiece. Since I adore Arknights, I need to criticize the anime, because if we get chapters 6 and beyond animated with this level of quality, then that'd be terrible. The story is amazing, and if more people got to see it, then I think that's great. But this level of quality is not what I would want for the story to be told in. And because of that, I give the anime a 6 out of 10. It's slightly above average. As a fan, I enjoy it, despite its flaws, but if you've never played the game and aren't interested in seeing the later chapters, then there's really no reason for you to watch this. Arknights is a masterpiece, but this is many, many steps below that.